Because clearly this event plays into Giuliani's strengths, supposed strengths, some would say. He is the hero of 9/11 in the eyes of many. But in terms of his politics, couldn't you also argue that his foreign policy while it may appear to be the safe choice, it's also very much in line with what we've seen over the past 8 years? And it may be just more of the same, which is potentially antagonizing nations like Iran or Pakistan.
Well, I mean, that assumes that people in Middle America would be more comfortable with John Kerry as commander-in-chief even today than George W. Bush. The bottom line is that, I speak for Red State America here because that's where I live, people are comfortable with Rudy Giuliani and leaders like Rudy Giuliani. They're comfortable with leaders like George W. Bush. They're comfortable with leaders like Ronald Reagan, that don't sit around wringing their hands, asking the question, what will Switzerland think about us? What will the United Nations think about us if we move forward aggressively to protect our national interests, to keep America safe? And it's so interesting, Mika. I'm so glad that I've been spending all the time I've been spending at home and talking to people, and that I was here when this incident happened, because I was in several homes yesterday visiting friends and family members, and to a person, they were all talking about the same thing. They were talking about how dangerous the world was. They were talking about Rudy Giuliani. And as I moved to different rooms, it was very interesting that I even heard people talking about, believe it or not, Mika, waterboarding. And I'm glad I was out of the room. And the sentiment was a very simple sentiment, and that was, keep us safe.
Right. We don't care how it happens.
We don't want to know what's going on in Saudi Arabia. We don't want to know what's going on in Iraq. We don't want all the details, just like Americans didn't want the details about what happened in Dresden during World War II or the extent of the suffering in Hiroshima. They wanted to win the war.
Okay.
Rudy Giuliani is that man for a lot of Americans, because, again, you say, some people say, well, even Time magazine called him their man of the year in 2001 because of his leadership after that attack. So that has been the perception over the past 7 years. His opponents can't strip it away from him now.
I agree with you, Joe. I actually hear the same thing among my circles that I've been talking to about this story. Having said that, though, the one thing that does come to my mind when you look at this campaign and you look at all the different choices out there and all the different visions in terms of what our place should be in the world, I just wonder if some voters will look back at post 9/11, and I have a friend who made a decision right after 9/11, holding her baby in the polling booth, and she decided to vote for George W. Bush because she thought she would, quote, be safer. She now regrets that decision because she doesn't feel like America is safer, and she feels like this president has brought us down a path which is leading us to this very moment right here, which is massive destabilization in Pakistan.
Well, no, you can't blame George W. Bush for what happened yesterday. Pakistan was destabilized in 1997 when they gained nuclear weapons. They had a military coup in 1999. I mean, this country's been destabilized for years. But you know what's so ironic about your friend that was holding that baby voting for George W. Bush? That friend will vote for somebody. I mean, that friend right now is able to wring her hands, and she's able to be concerned about America's foreign policy and whether they like us at the United Nations and whether they like us in France and whether they respect us in Turkey right now, because there has been 7 years without an attack on American soil.